This year's Computex coverage is sponsored by Corsair.
Hey, what is up guys? How are we doing? And welcome to our Computex 2018 coverage. We're here at the Cooler Master booth where they're actually showing off a lot of stuff. We've got over here their H500 line and there's two new cases to talk about. The first one is still in concept, although it sounds like it's very late concept, where we have a cheaper version. So what we've got here is essentially the H500P from before, but on the front you'll probably notice that they've now got rid of the acrylic only panel and they give you two choices. So you've got mesh and you've got the acrylic, so you can choose between performance or aesthetics if that's what you're going for. They've also changed the top, so before on the H500P we have the acrylic on the top panel. It's lowered a little bit here. Instead we have a single dust filter, but you've got a handle for ease of moving things about. The internals remain similar, although they have changed the mechanism, so it is a little bit easier to get everything out. But if we come all the way over here, which may be a challenge in this rather busy booth, we have the H500M, which was announced a couple of weeks ago, and now we have a choice between glass or mesh on the front panel, so again, performance or you can go for looks, but we've also got tempered glass on the top and on the sides. And this case is going to be the top end for the Cooler Master line before we start looking at the Cosmos stuff. So if you really do want something that looks good, but then has the performance to match and has all of the support for all of the high-end gear you need, this is probably the case you should be looking at. Something that's a little bit different this year though, and something that definitely caught my eye, is this case. It's called the SL600. And this is a new concept case, again, late concept. But what you probably notice is at the front, we've got a very thick front panel, and it looks like there's not going to be any airflow. But in actual fact, they've completely redesigned the way everything works. So we have the cool air coming in at the bottom, and then it comes out the top. So we've got two 200mm fans at the bottom that will bring in that cool air. There's a very large gap at the bottom, and then it will exhaust it out the top. We got something that looks quite futuristic, yet still remains a more classic design, but I really like what they're doing here. Speaking of the Cosmos line, we now have a redesigned version of the C700M. So on the front, we've got more RGB. This is addressable and can be controlled directly from the front panel, or of course you can use an addressable header on your motherboard, and then this will have some lovely patterns depending on your choosing. But when we open it up, you'll see that now, inside, we've got a completely different layout. And it doesn't have to be, you can choose the way you want it to be. But you see here, we've sort of got airflow that goes upwards where they've completely changed the way everything works. So the I/O is now on the bottom, and then the cool air comes in and then is exhausted out the top. And what I really like is sort of the way that it works with the graphics card, where it sticks out at an angle and it just looks completely different to what we've seen before. Moving over to the keyboards, and as you can see, there's a lot here. Now, Cooler Master, in my eyes, makes some of the best budget keyboards, but they're actually showing off some more high-end stuff now. This is the MK850, and we saw this at CES. What we're really interested in is the fact that we have analog switches when enabled. Whoa, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you, what that means is that if you have a gamepad and you move your character around with the left analog stick, it's just that, it's analog movement, and that's what they're trying to do here. So if you press the W, A, S and D keys down a little bit, then your character will move a little bit depending on how hard you press. And so this, in theory, should give you a lot more precise control. Then we move down and we move into my cough territory. I've just had a Sprite and it was a big mistake. If you're presenting, always drink water. And we have some low profile switched keyboards, and you can see this one here. It's a real diddler, isn't it? And so this one is clearly going to be very good for travel. But because it uses the Cherry MX low profile switches, we've got a very different sort of feel than we normally would. It feels a little bit odd to me, but I'm sure there are plenty of people that will appreciate this, as it's sort of halfway between a laptop keyboard and then a mechanical keyboard. Moving down, we're getting to some more budget-friendly keyboards. They still have some premium features though. On the top we've got this nice metal plate, and actually the design I think looks really nice. We've got RGB backlighting as well, if that's your bag. I mean, I think there's going to be a white version. This looks to me like the white version of the keyboard if you do want to save yourself a little bit of money, or you can go for the Cherry MX. And while it is only going to be available in China at the moment, we've got a new keyboard that is pretty much entirely plastic, but it's got RGB lighting, still with Cherry MX switches, but on the sides you'll see that the writing is just there. It's on the sides, not on the top, which can give you a different sort of aesthetic, and it means you can see the keys if you're looking further back. Now, the power supply table is probably not going to be most people's choice for the most interesting thing at the show. But what we've already seen at Asus's booth and now Cooler Masters is an RGB power supply with a screen on it. So this is actually going to be quite useful, as it's going to show you real-time information as to what's going on your PC without actually having to get a power meter out to show you what's what. So you see we've got a screen here, and it can show you a load of different information, again, about what's going on in your PC, so things like wattage, fan speed, efficiency, all of this stuff will be shown on screen. Now, I've got some fans, new fans to be exact. These are the Master Fan MF120 P1 ARGB. And yes, the A stands for addressable, because now we have addressable RGBs. And interestingly, they don't have the dual loop like the Corsair light loop fans, but this should be cheaper as a result. But we have a dual fan design, which is the 240 version, which is going to go on a 240 radiator. And they say that this is to reduce the amount of vibrations that you're going to get. Whether this is true, we will have to do some testing. But it's a good idea, I think. And if you're going down the Cooler Master route of case and then fans, it's definitely nice to have the extra flexibility. Now, moving down a little bit, we've also got an updated version of the Master Liquid Pro. This has got full RGB, it's got some transparent internals so you can see more what's going on. It's not addressable, that is the RS series that we've seen before, but this is going to give you a nice, good looking entry into all-in-one liquid cooling if that's what you're wanting to do. Then finally we have some concept coolers down here as well. This is a transparent liquid cooler. It's not moving at the moment, but I've seen a video of it. It's quite cool, you can see the little blades inside move. And you get like a very different look, but one that I would actually say is very tasteful despite all of the RGB. And then we also have this, which is a thermoelectric liquid cooler that goes beyond anything really I've seen before, where it can actually reduce your PC's temperature to below the ambient temperature in the room by using thermoelectrics. It's going to take up more room in your case. Whether it's completely necessary, again, we'll have to do some testing. But if you're going for something like a Threadripper or i9, then I can definitely see the appeal. Now let's talk air cooling for a second, because there is one cooler that always seems to steal the show and everyone seems to buy, and that is the Cooler Master Hyper 212. You can see the original was here back in 2007, and we've sort of gone through in a little timeline. This is the new concept, it's the H212 concept, original name, right? And this one adds RGB, it's got RGB on the top and on the sides. I'm a little concerned that this will add additional cost to the cooler, but we're not entirely sure. But it does add an additional heat pipe as well, which should get us better cooling. So if it is a similar price and we've got RGB lighting and then better thermal performance, then what's not to like? And so I think that's everything you need to see from the Cooler Master booth. A little sneak peek is what's behind us, which is a very cool PC gaming setup. I actually helped put this all together, get it all designed, installed. I'll be bringing that video with you very, very soon, hopefully. Really looking forward to that. But in the meantime, a massive thank you for you guys for watching this coverage of Computex. Make sure you stay tuned. A massive thank you to Corsair for actually bringing us out here and sponsoring this coverage. Any questions, leave it down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.